Okay, so now we're going to talk about our terms list in QuickBooks. So we come here to lists, down to customer and vendor profile lists again, and we have our terms list. QuickBooks is going to set up some default terms for you, but I'm going to go through and how to set up your own terms if you want, because you can define your own terms. All right, so we come down here to terms and then we say new, and we can give it a name. So again, you can make it a standard, you can make it date driven here. So I'm going to go ahead and say due by 20th as an example. So in the standard, you're saying it's one of the ones, right? 1% 10, net 30, net 10, etc. That's what they consider standard. So standard, you're saying it's due in X days. So let's say 10 days. Discount percentage is 1%. And they get a discount if they pay within 10 days. So if I were setting up 1% 10, net 30, I would put in here 30, 1%, and 10 days. Right? So that's a standard. But instead, if I'm doing it as a date driven, okay, so when would we do this? It's saying net due before, so this is due before the 20th of the month. It's due the next month if the invoice is within 3 days of the due date, right? So, or maybe 5 days of the due date. So that's saying if it's the 15th through the 19th, or maybe the 16th through the 20th, right? Then it will be due the following month. Right? It won't be due on the 20th of this month. Okay? So you can give them a little bit of leeway there. And then again, we can have a percentage. So 1% if the discount is paid before the 5th of the month. So again, with this, so maybe 1% 5th due by 20th. Oops. 5th due by 20th as an example. So again, what this is saying is that if I have an invoice that is dated throughout this month, it's due by the 20th of the month, right? So for the 1st through the 15th, it's due by the 20th. Okay, so, but if the invoice is dated between the 15th and the 31st, it's due by the 20th of the following month, right? And then if they pay by the 5th of the following month, they get a 1% discount. All right, so you have a lot of different options when you set those up in here. Everything's name driven, so when you are dealing with it, right, so this is what you're going to see on the drop down, not all those details. Those details are just calculated behind the scenes. But if you do come in here, and I can put in net 10 and just leave it at 0 days. Well, net 10's already being used. Let's say net 12. And leave it as 0 days. So if I do that, it's going to calculate incorrectly on my report. So you want to make sure that these are set up correctly. Okay. And these are our terms that we use on both sides. We use these terms on our vendor list when we look at our payment settings for our vendor. These are also the terms that are used on our customer list when we go in and edit our customers. Okay. Now, regardless of the list, we can come in here and customize our columns. And we can add terms as one of the columns here, right? So if we scroll down here, I can add terms on over there. So if it is something where we want to pay attention to the terms, we can see that there. If we do have the term set up as a default, of course, it will default to that when we go to create an invoice for this particular customer. That one didn't default. I must not have one set up for them. So it will default with your particular terms that you have set up, okay? If you have reports that you want to use, you can actually filter reports by terms. So if I have a profit and loss report, I can come in here and filter it by terms. Not sure why you'd want to do this, but if you want to see how many people pay you net 30 and how many people pay you net 15, you can do that. You can also total reports by terms again. So if I come in here, I have my profit and loss, I want to show my columns by terms breakout, I can do that as well. Okay, so again, perhaps it's helpful to see how much in sales you have for net 15 versus net 60 versus net 30. And you can say, oh, you know what, we have so few people on net 15, we're going to get rid of that term. Okay, we're just going to move them on up to net 30 because it's just not worth it. Because it's so immaterial, right? So few people have that term. Okay. So again, field in QuickBooks. It gives you information. That field also, of course, helps to, or it does fill our AP aging and our AR aging reports. So based on their terms, if it's not due yet, if it's net 30, right, and it's not within, if we're within the 30 days, it's going to show them in current. If you're outside 1 to 30, if you're outside those 30 days, between 1 to 30 days outside, it'll show in this column, etc. Okay, so if they're current, right, when we're doing collections and things like that, those terms are really important because they tell us who we need to go collect from. And if you haven't watched the video on the Collection Center, definitely go watch the video on the Collection Center because it's a really good way to help you with collecting. And those terms are important, again, because who should I collect from? And it also determines when things are almost due. So go check out that video.